Starting, all attendees are in listen-only mode.
First of all, good morning, everybody. Welcome to join webinar, How to Access the Medical Devices Market in China. My name is Anna Zhao. I come from China Britain Business Council. Actually, I used to be a medical doctor and specialized in anesthetics for 10 years. First of all, may I give you an introduction about EU SME Centre. EU SME Centre was established in the year 2010, and it combines six different associations based in China to help you, to support you as SME companies based in Europe. During the webinar, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, please use the questions panel on your right-hand side on your computer screen to write to us about your questions, comments. Agenda. Actually, for this 1 hour's webinar, we have a pretty tight agenda. First of all, please allow me to have a scene sighting to give you an introduction about the current Chinese healthcare system with a focus on meditech sector, which is really to give you an idea about business environment in China. And then I will invite my colleague Pei Pei to give you an introduction about the medical device sector report that we're developing on behalf of EU SME Centre. The third part is really the key part, the inside part of this webinar. We will invite Ms. Xu Chao from Osmonda to give you an insight introduction about the latest regulation, product registration, and also process by CFDA, China Food and Drug Administration. Osmonda is a CRO specialized in medical devices. And finally, feel free to raise your questions during this Q&A. Firstly, a vision for Health China 2020. For those who read Chinese, you know Health China 2020, 健康中国2020, is really a slogan promoted by the Chinese government. This sets, action plan in the 5 coming years to help China achieve this target. At this slide, on your left-hand side, this really gives you an infrastructure idea about healthcare system provision in China. This, just as many other countries, Chinese healthcare provision also combines at the fundamental part, public health institutions, then primary care community centers, and then secondary care hospitals. So this is a typical provision in China. But I would like to highlight a unique nature of this country, financing. On your right-hand side, you will notice in China, 90% of the hospitals are the so-called public hospital. But not like the UK, not like Germany, not like France. China's financing for hospitals, 90% are fee for services, 10% from public financing. So you may feel this is really strange, public hospital, but actually it's very much profit driven. If you're interested, I'm happy to elaborate on a separate occasion. This slide is really give you idea, a comparison idea about the current situation and the vision set for 2020. Just to highlight at the bottom lines, there's a ratio which is called doctor to nurse ratio. And if you do read, for year 2013, you will notice it's 1:1. Strange, isn't it? Normally, one doctor will be supported a number of nurses. But currently, in China, yes, it is one doctor, one nurse. But for 2020, they do set a target 1 to 1.25. Some of you may know, but today actually is International Nurses Day. From this slide, you may have this, sort of feeling that actually, yes, China is short of nurses to some extent. This is really the statistic figures published by Chinese Ministry of Industry and Information Technology. Please note the green part at the bottom of this slide. Just to give you an idea, among the healthcare industry, which combines medicines and also healthcare products, the meditech sector devices is a small proportion, which is just 8.5, 8.7. But actually, if you do see the growth rate, 2 digits, 17.2. So this shows this is a booming sector. This slide, again, it is published by MIT earlier this year. And this demonstrates the medical devices market, the annual profit and also its profit margin is also very attractive, 2 digits. Note the green part at the bottom. Now, let us focus on meditech sector. Currently, most of the Chinese medtech sectors or companies, they specialize in trading only. But the Chinese government is very much encouraging Chinese medtech to have indigenous innovation. And this could the opportunity for you, for EU SME companies, because some of you have very good R&D specialty. China is not one country. Whenever I brief UK companies, I normally say China actually is a continent. It's very much diversified. But because of this diversity, there are also diversified demands. For instance, aging population. Aging population. Currently, there are about 15% of Chinese population are already over 60 years old, 60. According to WHO standard, old people are defined as over 65 years old. And in China, this proportion also reached 10%, 10 to 11%. Reason 2, growing middle class in China, and this is no doubt. Thirdly, it is Chinese healthcare reform, especially the successful social security reform. Nowadays, 95% of Chinese population, either in urban area or in rural area, are covered by certain percent of medical insurance. However, the level of insurance is still very much challenged. Demands means opportunities. So for EU SME companies, either you are producing the class 1 or class 2 devices, or you are producing this high value important medical devices, either orthopedic implant or cardiac stent, you will find buyers in China. And more, as we just said just now, Chinese government very much encourage indigenous innovation. Therefore, selling innovation, intellectual property is also a business opportunity for foreign medical devices companies like you, SME companies. Distribution. This is crucial for your business in China. Traditionally, and because of this, China is a government-driven market, so 77% of devices actually are sold through hospitals, and the other small proportion is through retail channel. That's a traditional solution. Nowadays, e-commerce also provides you an innovative solution which is more attractive to SME companies. For instance, e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, I will elaborate later. Finally, may I provide you two case studies. This case study one, Beijing Yes Medical, actually is an SME company in China. However, this SME is with strong R&D capacity. The CEO of this company, he is also a professor in a university in Beijing, and he has been doing R&D research on hemodynamics in the past 20 years. And he has successfully transformed his R&D products into commercialization. So that's why he has two titles, professor as well as CEO. And I'm also proud to say that this company is a member of CBBC. In contrast, this is case two, Sinopharm. Some of you probably aware of Sinopharm. This is the biggest state-owned enterprise in China, Fortune 500. Now they're creating a new branch company called Direct Sales, based in Shanghai Free Trade Zone. This company is designated to provide cross-border e-commerce for your business. For instance, like medical devices class 1, class 2 thermometers or something like this, cosmetics, personal care products, you can sell directly to China without register with CFDA. Without. Or in another way, Chinese consumers can just purchase online, cross-border e-commerce, and then get your product from overseas to China. And the tax is also very much preferential. And for Chinese consumers, it means very, very much cost-effective. CBBC is working with Sinopharm on a seminar designated for this topic. If you're interested, I'm happy to elaborate later on. So this is my final slides. This shows exhibitions. I'm sure some of you are traveling to China later this week to attend China Medical Equipment Fair in Shanghai. We're going as well, and hopefully we could meet each other and put name into face. Now, may I hand over to my colleague Pei Pei to give you a brief about the medical device report that we're developing on behalf of EU SME. Pei Pei, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pei Pei, and I'm a project executive from CBBC's Life Sciences and Healthcare team. Thanks for Anna's first introduction of the first part, and I would like to move on with the second part. So here I would like to give you a briefing of the EU SME report on medical device sector in China. Some background information of the report. The EU SME Centre commissioned CBBC to conduct the research due to the reasons that China's fast-growing medical device market has raised the interest of EU SMEs, and they have received numerous inquiries and downloads of medical and health publications from EU SMEs. The report is conducted by CBBC's Healthcare and Life Sciences team. It lasted for 2 months, and the final version will be available on May 15th, which could be downloaded from EU SME Centre's official website. CBBC used a number of primary and secondary research methods, including desk research referring to public libraries and open databases, as well as interviews with CBBC partners and market insiders. So the report could be divided into 6 parts. First, definition and regulations. Second, market overview. Third, interview and case studies. And then opportunities, challenges. And then practical advice. The last part is about useful information. Part 1, to help EU SMEs understand how medical devices are defined and classified, we quote the definition and classification regulations by the China Food and Drug Administration. The classification regulations is a draft version, and it also includes some terminologies in the classification regulations. We've also attached a list of latest regulations published by CFDA in the annex part. Part 2, about the market overview. Actually, we've provided a chart of the market size from 2001 to 2014. In 2014, the sales revenue of medical devices in China is 38.3 billion euros, which is 20% growth than the year 2013. For the import, in 2014, China has imported 15.8 billion US dollars worth of medical device, 5% growth than the last year, and Europe is the largest exporters of medical device to China. And then we've provided a list of key players of China's medical device manufacturers, as well as foreign branded medical devices available in China. There are three traditional sales channels, including hospitals, medical device shops, and pharmacies. And the online shops is a new emerging sales channel for medical device. Part 3, CBBC conducted 4 interviews and has provided facts and advice from different interviewees. Actually, one of the interviewees said that most foreign medical device companies, they knew quite little about the Chinese regulations on medical devices, and they are eager for quick success and instant benefits, which shows that they are impatient to cultivate the market. I think he has provided some food for thoughts for medical devices companies who would like to enter the Chinese market. Next, opportunities and challenges. There are 3 factors that contributed to the opportunities in Chinese medical device market, which are the new health reform, China's aging population, as well as people's awareness of health improves. For challenges, legal and regulatory barrier, we mainly talk about the registration. For market barrier, we talk about competition from Chinese domestic medical device manufacturers. For operational barrier, we talk about the distribution channels for foreign medical device companies. Part 5, we provided advice grouped in short-term, mid-term, and long-term. For short-term advice, we talked about the foreign medical device companies could turn to medical consultancy companies for registration. And also, it is important to find a local Chinese distributor for your product, as well as brand promotion, IPR protection, and consider in the long run, merger and acquisition activities. The last part is about useful informations, such as terminologies, a number of exhibitions and events, as well as other useful web links and associations. So that's all for my part. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Pepe. Chao, over to you, please.
Muted. Unmuted.
Hi, Chao, could you hear us?
Muted.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, so I assume everyone can hear me now. My name is Chao. I work on the behalf of a large Chinese clinical trial CRO for medical device Osmond Group. I'm based in Berlin, in Germany, and be responsible for the international business development, especially in Europe. And we'll start with the introduction of the Chinese FDA. Hello? Start? Yeah, okay. Okay, good. I'm sorry. So we'll start with the introduction of the Chinese CFDA regulation system and go to the updates of the regulation just happened last year. Then I will describe the regulation process for the important medical device in order to in the order of each step, and with highlight the difference between the old and the new regulations. Okay, please go for the next page. Okay, before we go into the updates, it will be really helpful to understand the law and regulation system in China first. The China law approved by the State Council, so that will be the first 3 levels in the pyramid. So like the law system in other countries, under the single constitution, there will be common acts compiled by the National Congress, such as the Company Act or Food and Drugs Act. And then it's come to the administration law. So the highest regulation for medical device is at this level, the regulation for supervision and administration of medical devices. And then the orders compiled by the CFDA are the below level regulations, which define the administrative measures in different aspects, such as the procedures for the registration, for surveillance, and so on. And the CFDA also released a series of documents associated with regulations, which are the CFDA announcement, notification, and communication letters. And there are working guidelines to follow. So basically for medical device, the State Council decree shows direction and regulation. And the regulation orders and also the documents tells us how the things can be done. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's see what happened last year. The regulation for medical device was updated on March 21st after 14 years. So it's redefined the pathway of the product regulation, registration and manufacturing. And the loss of contents was also added for the post-market surveillance, which was little concerned in the previous version. Although this regulation simplified the approval for the Class 1, it proposed the regulation dossier for the Class 2 and the Class 3 device with more information. So overall, the industry expects a stricter regulation, especially for the domestic players. The new regulations were set to be effective 2 months after its release. Next slide, please. So here you can see what really happened in China during this 2 months gap. It's a picture taken in front of the building of the CFDA Administration Review Center 2 days before the new regulation became effective. It was a 2 kilometers queue of people who to hand in the document, the registration dossier to the CFDA. So the manufacturers intended to catch the last train to avoid a stricter product approval process. That's what's really happened. in last year. Okay, please, next slides. And it turned out that the 1st of June 2014 was not the end of the last trade. So after June, although the administration law became effective, the CFDA didn't release any other orders and documents associated with the law. So basically at that moment, no guidelines were given by the CFDA to indicate how the registration can be done. So at that moment, no one knows how many administration days will take for the CFDA review or how the regulation dossier was structured. Here I mentioned that time will be required by a so at that moment, at least rumors about the date of guidelines within the 3 months. So even the local CFDA authorization didn't really know about the date. The industry was keeping watching and believe that central CFDA as a whole is training heavy workload without doing a agreement during the discussion. So here I would like to take the chance to discuss about the working group of the CFDA of releasing the regulation document. So first, a draft version is issued, and then everyone handed in their opinions and suggestions with the mail. After collecting all the documents and comments, the CFDA released a version for public opinion. This is a chance for the public and the CFDA will perform a round of discussion. Several internal updates will be made for this document. And last step, the CFDA will publish a statement. So the whole process could take from several months or up to years, on which document they're going to work on. So the manufacturer shall reference to the draft versions that prepare registration because it shows the efficiency of regulation updates. Next, please. Okay, so all the rumors ended at the last day of July by the release of Order Number 4. The CFDA managed to release 27 new regulation files within 2 months. I list here some of the files on this slide. From the first 2 items, we can see that the CFDA differentiates the medical device and in vitro diagnostics. That was not the case before. And those files set the 1st of October to be the effective date. During these 2 months, I recall that all my colleagues and I was reading and discussing about the new regulations all the time. So it was lots of work for us to do. And the industry did see that the guidelines of the regulation become stricter. So the picture was taking that into some slides before was happening in front of the CFDA building again. Please go for my slides. So here I just show you that the regulations documents was basically doubled, was for what was it doing in the past. So here there's a picture showing that there's first case we prepared for the class 2 product registration. So basically people queued up in front of the CFDA Center and because they want to catch the last train again. But fortunately the CFDA gave us some time for the transition. So if your case is submitted to the CFDA before the 1st of October in 2014, the previous regulation will be applied. So for those who still have the cases running now, then basically your regulation will still apply to the last. And for the case submitted after the 1st of October in last year, there will be reference to the new regulation. So from now on, basically we need to read the new regulation and be prepared for it. Okay, please. Here's a nice slide. Okay, here's basically I want to give information about the difference between the imported medical device and the domestic medical device. In China, any device manufactured in China is considered as domestic device, while the product manufactured outside China are imported medical device. So if you say, like, I think most of the audience here will be your product would hold as imported medical device. But if you have a factory into China, then it's going to be considered as domestic device. And for regulatory level, then for the medical device, all the three classes will go for the central FDA in Beijing. But for the domestic device, in one, the state level FDA will communicate, and the class two, domestic manufacturers will do the level of FDA. And for class three domestic manufacturing device, then basically you have to go to Beijing to handle the case. And the qualifications for importing medical device and domestic ones are not the same. So for the importing medical device, what you need to have is the registration of the product and also the quality management system certification has to have been prepared in the country of origin. For most European manufacturers, you should have the CE certificate and also searching for H5 certificate. For the second one, you should have a China agent, which is a Chinese company who had case and to be the agent into China. And third, of course, you should have product registration on the classification field. Manufacturers, so basically you should have first the product registration certificate, and also you should have the QS audit done by China by the CFDA, and which is in China. is included, and also you should have manufacturing. So that will be all the traits, and you can here to see the difference. And from this slide, on, let me talk about the embodiment. Please, next slide. Okay, here I give you the basic step of the registration process for imported medical device. And for class 1, you see that you can prepare the dossier and appoint a China agent and will just submit the dossier to the CFDA. Then you'll get an immediate acceptance. Because before it takes longer, it's almost like 10 months, but now it's relatively fast. From the preparation until the acceptance, it only normally takes 2 and 3 months. And for the class 2 and the class 3 device, then basically the process has to be longer. First, you have to do registration testing in a CFDA listed lab. That means you have to do the testing to China again. And the second, basically you have to hand in a clinical evaluation report, or you have to do the clinical trials into China. Of course, you need to have a China agent as well. Then we'll go for the dossier submission to the central CFDA. That will be wait for you a long approval process. Okay, please, next slide. Hello? Next slide, please. Could you please go for the research? Okay, good. So basically, now here we're talking about the pre-request for a China agent. On the left of the slide, you're going to see an example of the new medical device registration certificate. Here you can see that on the top, it's going to be the manufacturer's name and address, and the OEMs if you have one. Then it's come to be the China agent's name and address, and that will be really important for you. So you will still be the holder of the medical device certificate. You should have a China agent, and they are listed into the certificate. So basically, they have to help you during communication, during the process of registration, and also afterwards for the marketing to communicate with the CFDA, and also take care of all the legal responsibilities of the product quality. So basically, for a China agent, or you can choose your representative office which any companies registered in China. So basically, if you have an office into China, I would suggest that you take the office as an agent. And if you don't have one yet, so you could think about the distributor as the first choice, or you can also hire any third parties company. So that means like export-import company, or like say a totally third-party person doesn't really involve in the selling at all. So here sometimes could cause problems when you choose your distributor, because it will be a bit harder to change your distributor. So better to choose a distributor that you know well and will be relatively trustful for it. Okay, good. So please go for next slide. Okay, here's as already mentioned briefly in the last slides, and basically you see that there's a big change for class 1. For class 1, the entrepreneur certificate, which shows on the left of the slide, has been changed into a recording letter, and they will simply give you the information about the manufacturer's name and the product name, and the CFDA will release a recording letter after 5 days of getting the registration dossier. So that's really a big advantage of the new regulation update. So for those who are to produce class 1 device, then it's really the right time when you go to China. Next slide, please. Okay. So here, just remember the workflow, what I showed you in the slides, basically like for the class 2 and class 3, the first step for the product registration is to run a full performance test in a Chinese CFDA test. If the registration testing, then the test tests are usually done during the product approval in the home country. So this test was done into China and has to be performed with reference to technical requirements. And this product technical requirement is basically a document which has references to the Chinese manual and uses that also requirements of the product, such as appearance, electronic parameters, performance parameters. It also has to be testing method. So basically, this is summarize of the technical requirements of your product has to be into what standard. If your product which already have national Chinese standard is well, then the compliance of the Chinese national standard is better. For example, talking about ongoing analysis is basically you should definitely follow the standard and to define other matters of the Chinese national standard. Next slide, please. Here, most of my clients always asking questions. If the test has been done in China before, is it necessary to run the test in China again? Unfortunately, the answer is yes. So like that, because the international standard are not directly recognized into China. So this tests are done by reference to Chinese local standard only. The Chinese standard formation community converts this international standard into the local one by adding a few requirements that are specific to China. So, for example, the electronic voltage shall be applied in the China standard, and lots of Chinese standards are actually even identical to the international ones. Also, you will see from the table that the China standard falls behind in terms of time in comparison with the international standards. For example, in the first row, the China standard of safety requirements in 2007 is adopted from the international ones in 2001 version. So like that, the China lowered the standard in order to protect domestic manufacturers. which are less competitive than the manufacturers from developed countries. So during the discussion of the international medical device regulation for the CFDA has committed to accelerate the international standard adoption. However, there's no concrete timelines given. So basically, for now, we still have to hold into the Chinese standard and assume that they are not really totally the same as the international ISO standard. Next one, please. So we're going to show you that how a registration test is into the Chinese lab. So to run registration test, manufacturer always China product shall first draft documents about the product technical requirements, which are developed from last month. And then basically you also hunt into the product samples into the lab. And the test lab will then test the product according to the field of the product technical requirements and then release a testing report. So those product technical requirements and the testing report shall put into the preparation for state and submit to the CFDA review. Next slide, please. Okay. So the registration test shall be done into a CFDA listed testing lab. The CFDA has announced 21 labs in total, and 10 of them are the authoritative and provide comprehensive type test. So those 10 labs were located across in the country. Each of them has its own specialties due to the history reasons. So during the time of the state-controlled economy, each lab has its clear defined test scope. For example, the laser product could be tested in Wuhan lab only, and nowadays, because the China economy is becoming more market-driven, so these 10 labs are competing with each other, and the testing scope of the image to its specialists in the past more. The manufacturers could choose the testing lab by checking whether all test estimates conducted by a lab could be recognized as CFDA. So basically, for example, if you want to go for laser product, I will recommend you to go if you have instruments, I recommend you to go to the PQ lab. So, but for the general electronic medical devices, we can test all labs. So next one, please. Next, use for example, first one is the product sample. However, please always be aware that the customer clearance will be required for a medical device. So for some of our clients, normally just doing the direct shipment, and then later, so like the customer will call the products. So you always need to inform your agent in China or also the test lab to release you a letter and use this letter in customer clearance. This is really important. And for the second one, the payments with the test lab could be difficult. The test lab often do not accept the payment from abroad directly, but some of them do, but a lot of them do not. So please always have a cooperation companies or person to help you with the transfer. So who can be your China office, could be your distributor, a consulting company, or even a friend. So this could also cause some trouble. Another thing is like saying, be careful about the product modification with China standard. Often the product failed in testing, especially the EMC test. So lots of our clients always say that, wow, we are really deep in good quality, could that happen? Well, you don't really know what will happen during the product shipment. So basically that could be some kind of trouble. So basically, you prepare to have someone, such as engineer or your distributor who knows your product to modify the product samples if the product is failing into the testing. This is really important. Another thing is biocompatibility test. It's really a pain in the neck. So that means, right, they have to kill some animals or mouse into the lab to test some kind of competitive there. So for the first thing, if you can avoid the contact of the device to the patient, for example, the patient had to lie into a bed or something like that. So in your instruction for use, maybe you can write that properly to say the patient have to dress well, cannot be lying there naked or so. So this will be also can avoid you some additional tests and to save money and time. But of course, for the product which has to be implants, there's no other way to go. You have to wait for another time for the testing. Okay, please go next slide. So you recall from the flow chart, we're talking about the registration testing now coming to the clinical side. So for the clinical side, it's always a really good question to ask, or should we prepare for the clinical evaluation report, or do we want to do the report to China? Because I would say that there's not predictability in the patient for it. It's really depending on the product, depending on the principles of the product on the market, and so on. So first, you have to keep in mind that currently the regulation for clinical evaluation or clinical trials is still currently asking for public opinion. So that means this is not really the final decision for CFDA. We're packing some clear regulation data. For first, all the medical device and also the analytics, no matter which area you are, you have to submit document clinical evaluation to the CFDA. And also, if the class 2 and class 3 medical device and IVDs need clinical trial data if they are not on the exemption list. So what is the exemption list for the clinical trials? And this was basically 2 documents made by the CFDA, and will be including the 488 plus 2 and 79 plus 3 medical device into the list. So each entry contains the product name, intended use, principles, and also if there's any compliant Chinese or national and industry standard. So basically, if your product is in the list, then there's for sure that you don't need to do a clinical trials into China. But if your product is not on the list, then maybe there's a big chance that you have to do the clinical trials into China. And this list will be still getting bigger, getting longer. So basically, there will still going to be the chance that it could be changed in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, for the clinical evaluation report here, I would say that the China CFDA is trying to learn the system, the regulation system from the US, from the Europe. So basically, here's also they said it's possible for you to scan into the clinical evaluation report. Then there's 3 ways to go. First one will be the exception pathway. That means you should compare your product to the product description into the clinical exception list. Or you can go for equivalence pathway. That will be exactly the same like the European CE clinical evaluation report. That will be comparing product to the predicted product registered into China already. And the third one will be the trial pathway to conduct the trials into China. No other ways to go. So first, I give you some, I say the workflow into such kind of to show you that which way to go. So basically, for sure, you have to decide that this is really a medical device, and if it's really in the list, then you can go for exception pathway directly. Or if it's not on the list, then have to check whether there will be predictive device into Chinese market already. If there's not, then will be the trial pathway. If yes, we can go for the equivalence pathway. Okay, next slide, please. So here, describe a bit more about the exception pathway. So if it's in the list, then basically you have to see whether the product is really exactly the same description as in the list. If yes, 100% sure, then you can compare to the list only. But of course, if there's no, then you should describe the difference, the safety and effectiveness between your list, between the list and your product. And if yes, then if there's difference, then basically you have to go add more data. If there's no difference between your device and the product exception list, then you just can describe the difference, and that will be already fine. Next one, please. Okay. So here shows the most complicated one. But I think for you already doing the CE approvals, and basically you already know that how the thing could work. So if there's already predictive device into China, then you can describe the difference to see whether there's difference between your product and the predictive ones. If there's no difference, basically you have to describe whether you already have the clinical trial data before China registration. That means your product was already done into Europe or into America, into any other countries who already launched your product. You should provide these documents. Now, of course, there's not really just registered into the clinical data. Then you should also give the sales outside China, give this kind of information. So that includes the adverse event of the instance and so on. And that will be, you have to collect some literatures from the database or from your cell record and so on. And basically, if there shows that there will be difference between your product and the predictive device, then this device are really clinically and non-clinically aspect different and effective, the safety and the effectiveness of the product. And if yes, then basically there's doesn't affect the difference, then basically you don't need to do other things. But if there's a difference, really effective, the safety and effectiveness, you have to go to the clinical trial. For this one, is really complicated flowchart, but I think for you, then basically already have experience into the CE market. To do the approval, this is relatively straightforward. The only thing is like you have to be prepared to compare your product with the predictive device into China market only. It's not really a global comparison. This you have to always keep in mind. And still, the CFDA is still asking for more data about your device rather than from the literature from other products in the past. Next one, please. Okay. So there's no other way to go. So basically, your product is really new to the Chinese market. If you're the first one who go into the Chinese market, or there's really big, let's say, advantage of your product over other products, so basically you have to do the clinical trials into China. And then you have to follow the GCP into China, the good clinical practice. And then the time takes will be first have to do the EC approval for 2 and 3 months, and then doing the recruitment of the patient, plus the follow-up time, and then later have to do the data process. And this takes another 2 months. And then later you get to be a clinical trial report, and this has to be handed into the CFDA. Here are these 3 articles was new into China, but this is relatively obvious to the European manufacturers, but this is really new for China. Was before, there's no requirements for the conductor of the clinical trials to record into the city level CFDA, but now you have to do that, and also the hospital. And also the CFDA clinical trials have to also compliance into certain kind of qualified hospitals, and that will be all the 3A hospitals listed by the CFDA. And these trials have to accord to the QMP of the medical device clinical trials. And the last one, there's clinical trials for the class 3 high-risk products. For some of them, especially for implants, have to be approved by the CFDA and also reported to the corresponding local CFDA and health bureaus before the initiation. This may be us another 1 month or so to really getting the approval. So basically, then lots of clients just asking the question. So if we have to do the clinical trials there will be really long time consuming. So how do we going to combine these two? So there's also another thing. You should always try, maybe there's chance to do the clinical evaluation report and at least to already answer all the questions from the CFDA that there will be some part you don't do the clinical trials and try to, let's say, minimize the clinical trials into China for the samples. So that means like your patient cohort could be smaller into China, and to that you save some money and time. But this could also be will be hard because at the beginning you really don't know if you really have a high risk product. So maybe from the trials from the beginning could help you a lot already. Okay, so next slide, please. So here I summarize the process before the CFDA submission. So on the left side, you see when there's no trials needed, then there will be appoint agent and submit, prepare the product technical requirements and submit into the CFDA qualified lab and doing the test, and also provide other clinical evaluation report and doing that together, submit that into CFDA. If there's trials is needed, basically you can appoint a China agent and writing the PTR and running the test into lab and doing the clinical trials into China and then submit those into CFDA. Next one, please. Here this described what happened after CFDA submission. So first will be 5 working days of dossier submitted into CFDA. They don't give you answer immediately, but after they accept it, and there will be 3 working days for the dossier transfer. And then for the first technical review, then for class 2, there will be 60 working days, and class 2 will be 90 working days. And then later you get the CFDA remarks. And then you have only 1 year to really answer all the remarks and to prepare a supplementary information submission. And then you basically hand into supplementary information to the CFDA again. They're going to working into another 60 working days for the second review. And if this also approved, then basically transfer into the administration review again will be cost like 20 working days, and later after 10 days you get the certificate. So basically for that whole process, if we're just taking for the 1 year for supplementary submission preparation away, then basically for class 2 you together the administration time will be 158 working days. And for class 3, it will be 188 working days. So we're talking about for 8 months, 8 months and 10 months. So basically, if there's anyone can tell you that they can get a Chinese CFDA product registration within 10 months, that's not really possible. And also there's something new, because the CFDA was before not really doing the QMS audit for the manufacturers abroad, but here from the new regulations, they also said this would be possible. But currently, I don't think that will be really happen because the CFDA is really lack of the working human resource to do the checking up abroad. So here will be the other process. Please go to the next slide. So here I give you some stats. There will be all the clinical, all the CFDA registration case on the 2nd of April in 2014. So here you can see what really happened to the other case. So 18% was waiting for the first review, 12% waiting for the second review, and in the review process, there was 15% that are in the review process. But more than half, 55% other case that is overdue for the supplementary submission. So here you should be careful that you don't not underestimate the CFDA process, because it's really a long process and the regulator is relatively harder and it's different with different language. And here to be always prepared for the long term. But always remember that don't do your marketing while waiting for the process, waiting for the certificate. because basically when you're doing the clinical evaluation, when you're doing the clinical trials, that will be really the good part for you to build up the main players into the market, into the country. So you can talk with the key opinion leaders already and basically try to convince them about your product. So basically the marketing process have to come along during the registration process. So don't wait until the last minute. After all, I hope that's going to give you a business success after following the new introduction and the new regulations. Thank you very much. Okay.
Unmuted.
Thank you very much, Chao. Now we come to the Q&A session. Hi, Chao. Actually, there are a couple of questions to you, which is relevant to Class 1 products. Shall I read this for you, right?
Okay, thank you.
Great. So for Class 1 medical devices, does it mean that a Chinese agent is mandatory?
Class 1 is also mandatory because then it's also, though it's not really showing into the recording letters, but you have to show that into the CFDA database. So this is totally required.
Great, thank you. And second question is still relevant to Class 1 product. For Class 1 product, non-qualification needed to sell the product? Is that so?
What do you mean non-qualification?
Right. Actually, yes. Qualification means all these, documents, etc. So the original question is,
okay.
Yes, for Class 1, non-qualification needed to sell the product, question mark.
Okay, so you can hear me now, right?
Absolutely, very much, very
okay.
good.
Okay, so the Class 1, basically you have to prepare for all the dossier as well. So you should have a recording letter into the European side. So basically you have to register it as a medical device in Europe. And for the ISO standard 13485 is not really a mandatory, but at least you should have ISO standard 9001. That's quite important. And of course, then if your device is not required, it's not recognized in Europe as a medical device, basically you should also give in the supporting materials that, okay, this is really not a medical device in Europe. Then there's also, like, say, the dossier you have to be prepared, and that will be all is needed.
Great, Chao. Thank you very much. I understand actually the question, if it's really to the question itself. If you're asking the traditional way to access China market, then yes, Chao give you the answer. However, if you mean the sort of innovative solution to access China market, for instance, through cross-border e-commerce, then if a Chinese consumer purchase online, cross-border e-commerce solution to purchase online, then even the product without CFDA registration, the Chinese consumer can still buy it through online purchasing. So this is the so-called cross-border e-commerce currently in China, and also this is the Sinopharm direct case. So I hope we both, Chao and me, both answer the question. It really depends whether you mean is traditional way or the innovative solution for Class 1. And here we come the last question. The last question is really about what is the coverage of medical devices by classes, Class 1, 2, 3, by basic medical insurance scheme. For those who are not familiar with the basic medical insurance scheme, may just very briefly, Chinese government insurance, actually there are 3 categories. For urban employed population, BMIS, basic medical insurance scheme, covering this sort of a population. And for those who are, urban population but not employed, and for rural population, they're covered by different other insurance scheme by the government. So actually this question is not the devices by class, it really depends on product. Each individual product, even in the same category, all Class 1, all Class 2, all Class 3, it depends whether it's domestic or it's imported. and then the proportion covered by the insurance scheme is different. I hope this answered your question. Just a final remark. All of you will get the slides of today soon. EU SME Centre. So thank you very much, Chao. Thank you very much, Pei, and thank you for listening. I think that's the conclusion of this webinar, and we hope you will find it useful. And any questions, please raise it to EU SME Centre. Thank you very much. Bye.